I know you work a lot with like athletes, obviously, in your current position. So I guess this is a question that just maybe I thought of. How would you recommend athletes to kind of pick their major? And the reason I said that because a gentleman who I played with at Michigan State, he went on to play a little bit in the NFL. He was telling me we was having a phone conversation, and he was telling me that he wanted to do engineering, but he was almost like persuaded against it, like just because he was coming in a football player, and they were like, man, that's going to be too. I don't want to say tough, but too like demanding. And obviously we know Ross Weaver, who he did it also, a mechanical engineering as well. And I remember those days. I was like a freshman when he was coming to class late because he had classes that were around the football schedule. And I think that some degrees just don't coexist well with athletics, especially particularly football. Uh, so I guess how do you kind of go about as you're mentoring and kind of advising students on like their major? And do you say is it? I'm pretty sure it's not a one thing catch all where you're saying, hey, go into STEM. But I guess what factors are you telling the student to think about as they're making such an important decision?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I think we put a lot of merit and put a lot of stock in trying to figure out what your major is and what is that going to be. This is a great decision for individuals who are 18 to 22 years old who are still our brains are still being formed.
Right.
So in terms of what we know, that amygdala and the fight or flight and all those modes, and trying to understand that scientific base, where we're asking this individual to decide for the rest of your life, what are you going to do?
At
Is
18
that
years old,
is
19.
that a fair thing to do? And I think we have to be, as administrators, and have a little bit more latitude and flexibility as it relates to what is actually available to students. And
Right.
that's from my background of being an academic advisor. One of the things that, I would focus on and ensure that our students had, when I was at Florida State and when I was at Clemson, was ensuring that those individuals really took care of their general studies
Okay.
and had a good base of where they could dictate where their majors are.
Got you.
Where you're seeing now is, when we were playing, Dave, is we were inhibited by what time practice was,
Right.
different things. Mainly now, not only here at state, but just across the country, many teams are practicing in the mornings, which I would have loved that, dude.
Really? You're talking about like actual football practice in the morning?
Absolutely, man. And
Wow, I did
there's
not
a
know that.
multitude of different places, not just here, but like
Yep.
across the country with different statistics, as well as different findings and return to play and injury when they happen.
Yep.
Typically happen when you're fatigued, when the sun's beating you off, different. So we're
That's perfect.
making more scientific evidence based, more leaning, decisions. So that would inhibit us from, wanting to explore a major that, not saying we wouldn't do it, we always found a way,
Yep.
but now there's no barrier as to, in terms of timing of majors. There's a secret. I mean, there's more online offerings. There's so many ways you can get there now, which I'm very, very fortunate how it has evolved.
Yep.
So there's no barriers to what you can major in, but I do think you have to be realistic too.
Gotcha.
Now, granted, if you're not someone who's strong in math and science,
Yep.
I'm not about to tell you to be a mechanical engineer
Yeah,
because
for
that's
sure.
not your ministry.
Yep. And that's important you said that because my cousin told me since you are strong in math or you like math and science, do engineering. So that was the exact advice I got from my mentor as I was coming in.
Smart goals are real, man. Specific, measurable,
Yep.
attainable, realistic. All those things you have to have that mindset.
Yeah.
And that's like me. You put me in on goal line to run it in. I'll probably get in there, Dave,
Yep.
with the right appropriate pulls and things of that nature. But you are gonna know exactly A, B, C. The gaps to hit
Yep.
because that's your natural
Gotcha.
where you feel comfortable.
That's good.
Whereas if someone else who's in heavy arts and sciences, and I want to say this too, a lot of folks, you go with those, the engineering, I want to be a medical doctor, I want to be a physical therapist, I want to be all these things. But if you focus on what your passion is,
Yep.
like if you love history, if you love, teaching, go into that. That's the things where you're going to really find. And there's so many career assessments,
Yep.
things that we leverage and utilize now so that you know exactly what students love to do. So you can start
Right.
baking that in. And that's what electives are for too, to help you understand that so you can garner that a plan,
Yeah.
which is going to help you.
And